I am just going to, I hear a little bit of looping, but I think we are okay now. Let's see. And we're just waiting for a few more people to trickle in. And okay, and Jan, I'm going to unmute you. Wonderful. And yes, thank you. So wonderful to see everyone today online, to be together as a community. Welcome to our session with Dr. Jan Willis. And Professor Willis, we are so grateful to you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to share wisdom with us and to help us navigate some very difficult questions around racism, activism that we're facing today. Here, I'm just going to do a little muting for a bit. And for everyone, we're just so inspired and humbled to see so many people come together to explore these questions. And we will have Q&A at the end. So please keep your questions in mind. And for those of you not already familiar, we invited Dr. Willis because she can offer so many perspectives on this matter. On one hand, she is a deeply accomplished Buddhist scholar, author, and practitioner. She's Professor Emerita at Wesleyan University and now visiting professor at Agnes Scott College. And Time Magazine named her as one of the 6 spiritual innovators for our millennium. And on the other hand, she has personally walked an arduous but fruitful path, one that is very inspiring. Growing up in segregation, fighting for civil rights, experiencing the traumas that come from overt racism, and also finding a way to healing and joy. And I think many of us are drawn to her due to her open heart, the keen insights she can share, and just her joy. And so it's a great honor to be with her and with everyone tonight as a community looking at these issues to learn and support each other. So without further ado, I will pass things over to you.
I guess I should unmute. Hello, everyone. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you for being here. So I need to begin by thanking Jennifer. Can you hear me okay, Jennifer? Wonderful. Because Jennifer not only invited me and went through all the logistics of making this happen, and I am not at all accustomed to Zoom chats or videos or film, and I find myself these days doing podcasts, doing films, doing Zoom presentations, but I couldn't have done it without Jennifer, and so please join me in thanking her. Thank you, Jennifer, so much. Now, I understand we're going to talk about refuge a little before taking refuge. Is that right? So I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in a while. Great to see you. Before doing any Buddhist activity, we Buddhists take refuge. We place our trust in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, those 3 jewels or 3 gems. And we're going to do that tonight. I invite you to do it by first calling to mind an image of the Buddha in the space in front of you. Lift it up, a little meditation here, a little visualization. So in the space in front of you, please visualize, life-sized but holographic, an image of the Buddha at his enlightenment. So that's right palm on right knee, left palm flat at the waist as though it were holding a begging bowl, but there's nothing there now. Maybe you see a begging bowl. The Buddha is golden in color, skin color, has the Ujnisha, is sitting there calmly in the space in front of you. You can see through him. You can see behind him. Oh, now visualize that Buddha. And when we say refuge, first sentence will begin with Sangye and end with Harsho. On that first recitation, please visualize that from that Buddha image's forehead, there comes white light. And that white light comes across the space from the Buddha's forehead into your forehead. Visualize, as we're saying refuge, as we're reciting that white light floats, nothing heavy, very light, floats from the Buddha's forehead into your forehead. And it touches your forehead. You think your physical body is completely purified. Then, when you hear Sangye again, visualize that red light comes from the Buddha image that you visualized in front. From the Buddha's throat center, red light comes. It floats across and gently touches your throat center. Visualize that when that red light touches your throat center, that your communicative skills, your speech, your thought becomes purified. Then when you hear Sangye beginning the third recitation of refuge, visualize that from the image of the Buddha floating in space in front of you, blue light comes. Special blue light. And it comes from the Buddha's heart center into your heart center and touches your heart center lightly. And when it touches, think that all your heart and mind becomes instantly purified. And so with this threefold recitation, calling on Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, think that all your three doors of body, speech, and mind are completely purified. This is how we begin a Buddhist activity, we're told. So let's try to do it. All right, call that image to mind. And while it's floating there, visualize these lights coming from the Buddha image into you with each recitation. Okay. Sangye Ju Dong So Xie Cho Namya Vaha Chang Chuk Wara Du Thai Ni Kyab Su Chiu Da Gi Jen So Gi Pe So Nam Ki Rola Pen Shi Song Ye Ro Para Sho. Now visualize red light. Song Ye Chu Dong So Shi So Namya La Chan Chuk Wara Dro Thai Ni Yap Su Chiu Da Gi Jen So Gi Pe So Nam Ki Ro La Pen Chi Song Ye Ro Para Sho. Now visualize blue light and Song Ye Chu Dang So Ji Chon Miao Ba Chang Chuk Wara Do Dai Ni Kyab Su Chiu Da Gi Jinsugi Petsonam Ki Rola Benshi Songye Dro Para Sho. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. So, oh, so I want to begin by reading something to you. I hope you don't mind. Oh, just listen. When I wake up, there is someone there who loves me. When I leave my home, the people living on my street know my name, know my parents' name and claim me as their own. And I do the same for them. We break it together. We laugh and dance and work and build together. Wherever I go, I am known and I know others. We greet each other with smiles and hugs. Our expressions always genuine. We don't hide resentments between clenched teeth or anger in clenched fists. We say the words that need saying. We speak and listen and forgive and understand. We are peaceful in our hearts and actions, and our peace is never built on the suffering of others. We live in balance, never taking more than we need, never needing so much we can't sustain ourselves. And each of us is honored and valued and respected as equal members of a collective, irrespective of age, ability, ethnicity, gender, or any other political description. We bring all of who we are. This is a little piece that's written by a woman named Regina. I won't give her last name. She lives in Portland. Let me make sure that's the case. Sorry, she lives in Seattle. This little piece is part of a book that Natasha Marin, Marin, wrote that's called Black Imagination. You can tell from the piece I just read, you may think pretty utopian, pretty ideal, pretty sweet, pretty cool. This is a collection put together for a museum by an artist, Natasha Marin, and some other Black women who went out of their way to collect sound bites, statements for a piece that they were putting up in a museum. And they had a very special call go out to certain groups of people, men and women, and this is who they chose. We planned an exhibition that would decenter whiteness and provide space for healing and validation. We agreed to collect sound from Black folks of all kinds, and craving nuance over stereotype, we sought out Black children, Black youth, LGBTQ plus Black folks, unsheltered Black folks, incarcerated Black folks, neurodivergent Black folks, as well as differently abled Black folks. And we asked them all to imagine a world in which they felt loved, safe, and valued. Their collected responses are gathered in this book. Highly recommended. Black Imagination. Imagine a world where you felt safe, loved, and valued. So, as I said, you may think this is too utopian. You may think, I've heard that somewhere, perhaps in Dr. King's The Beloved Community. Perhaps you just say, too idealistic. We'll never have a world like that. Well, it certainly seems in the world we're now inhabiting that it seems pretty impossible. Oh, because we all find ourselves now sitting together as Buddhists, actually sitting perhaps from time to time during the day, maybe doing retreats. But we're sitting in a world where there are simultaneously these, at least three, probably more, we could tick them off, but at least three worldwide crises. The one caused by coronavirus, that's just pulled the rug out from under our lives, at least since early March. And the other, the massive impact on economics and livelihood, to say nothing of the world that's burning, literally. And the third is an ongoing systemic racism that we now perhaps see vividly for the first time, maybe for the first time for some of us. It was because we were inside watching news that we watched George Floyd be murdered. We saw the life taken out of him for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We witnessed it. 2 days ago, we heard through news outlets, cable, we read about it in the Atlantic, hopefully, that Breonna Taylor's name was not mentioned in the grand jury's statements and in their indictment of one police officer for reckless endangerment because he had shot bullets and they'd gone into other apartments, some inhabited by whites. I didn't hear this at first, that the inhabitants of the other apartment were a young white couple. I hadn't heard that. But no mention of the fact, and no one indicted, no mention of her name, Breonna Taylor, who police had put 6 shots into her body and it murdered her in her house, in her own apartment. This is a world we live in. And Black women's lives have counted so much less than every other life, it seems. So we're just reminded 2 days ago that even her name is not mentioned in the grand jury's indictment. And her death is apparently not considered reason for any of these policemen to be held accountable. So that's where we find ourselves. It's a doozy of a difficult place to be. And this is what we share, these intertwining and interconnecting threads of crises. It's time we try to figure out how to do something about it. Can you all hear me okay? Oh, good. Oh, so good. Oh, okay. This is tough stuff. Oh. So, sitting in my home in Decatur, Georgia, May 25th, watching George Floyd and then watching him die over and over and over and over again. Oh, and watching protesters march day after day after day in Portland. And I sometimes go and teach at Maitripa in Portland. Oh, I have myself begun thinking about what freedom might feel like if you happen to be a Black person in this country. So I did a little essay on that. So forgive me if I read a couple of things from that essay. So here's a statement of the situation, as James Baldwin put it. You know, James Baldwin is, I think, he's come back into fashion, you know, but I grew up and I thought, wow, what a writer this guy is, you know? I've never been able to get through the 6 pages of my letter to my nephew without blubbering, because there's so much love there. There's such indictment to Americans and to white privilege and to the devastation white privilege has caused in this country. And there's so much love in those 6 pages. I just can't contain myself. A master writer, James Baldwin. James Baldwin said, and I'm not going to read that, I highly recommend it. You know, there are 2 essays grouped together in the little volume called The Fire Next Time. They're both about James Baldwin's life, and the first essay that's so short is to his nephew on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, which at the end Baldwin says, you and I both know we're celebrating the 100th anniversary 100 years too soon. Not here yet, right? Baldwin. Paradox, repetition, gorgeous. 6 pages. Please read it if you haven't. Oh. So Baldwin said, not everything that's faced can be changed, right? But nothing can be changed until it's faced. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. But that's not the hard part I want to give you from Baldwin. This is what Baldwin said about America's great sin. You know, it was Madison, James Madison said slavery is America's original sin. And then Jim Wallace, Jim, you know who I mean, America's original sin, Jim Wallace, right? The evangelical preacher. Made it title of a book, but it was James Madison who said it. James Madison fearing, how can we be formulating this country which is gonna claim freedom for all when we are keeping slaves? He knew that's a dangerous situation. That's not tenable forever. So James Baldwin is saying his description of the situation where we find ourselves is this. He put it in a small essay in 1964. And the essay is called The White Problem. So I just want to quote this paragraph. The people who settled this country had a fatal flaw. They could recognize a man when they saw him. They knew he wasn't anything else but a man. But since they were Christian, and since they had already decided that they came here to establish a free country for themselves, the only way to justify the role this chattel was playing in one's life was to say that he was not a man. For if he wasn't, then no crime had been committed. That lie is the basis of our present trouble. End quote. Gordon Baldwin. That lie. How do you enslave a people? And how do you expect, with a flick of a switch, that freedom has meaning? How do you say this is a country where there's freedom for all, except for those who used to be slaves, or except for those from whom we stole this country, or those who were immigrants? As that all those hierarchies started to form. Isabel Wilkerson says they're castes, that the caste system was strong in America and in America's foundations, that the castes were the bones and race is the skin. Good analogy, I thought. Good analogy. And I remember being in Benares, when I was 19, and having a chiniwala, namkeen chiniwala, little stall where this man sold salty crackers, like tiny little rich crackers in India, the namkeen, and then candies of various sorts, chini. So the namkeen chiniwala asked me one day, Mentab, may I ask you a personal question? He said. I said, well, I don't know. It depends on what it is, something smart. And he said, Ma'am Sahib, what caste are you? Oh, what caste are you? And I said, hey, I was offended, I said, hey, I'm American. We don't have caste. Can you believe I said that? I said, we don't have caste in America. I said, I'm American, I'm black, And he then said, oh, American Negro, so sorry, so sorry. The namkeen chiniwala knew that if you're black in America, that's a bad situation. Huh? So sorry. And then later, we talk. He said, I really thought you were from Assam. You have round face, your complexion sort of light. I had no idea you're American Negro. Oh, that's too bad, Oh, people around the world are so much more educated than we are in our insular America. We learn everything we need. You know, you just need to travel, right? People are so much more well educated outside this country. But at any rate, my point is just, and back to Baldwin, it's very difficult here to talk about race and racism. It's like, ooh, everybody gets immediately, ooh, I don't think you should be going there. It's not in polite society. Don't, right? Huh? It's like the N word is supposed to be so, well, it is. I mean, we shouldn't use that, right? But what's the word for whites, for non-people of color? It's got to be an R word, right? It's got to be, don't call me a racist. Don't go there. My parents and grandparents had nothing to do with that. Mitch McConnell stood on the Capitol grounds and said, oh, no, we're not going to talk about it. None of us were there. And I look at him and I see, you were there. Your ancestors were there. They were there on the horse overlooking the plantation. You can see it in your face, Mitch McConnell. You know, this is generational, this trauma of trying to keep this lie. It caused shame and humiliation for those who were chattel. Still, it caused resentment. I want to run away. I had no part in this. It causes all sorts of defensiveness on the part of people who feel that their relatives might have been involved. It's not about blaming. It's not about pointing fingers. You know, I sometimes just say, what's your zip code? You know, that tells a lot. You know, if you learn something about redlining, blockbusting, and GI Bill and all that stuff, where you live has to do with white privilege and white supremacy. It has to do with that. They are all connected. It doesn't mean anyone's a bad person, but a person needs to know where they come from. And we sit in a country that proclaims freedom for all, and yet we deny it to some folk. And we can see it. And the COVID lockdown showed us even more. Who are essential people? Those people that put the food in the grocery stores. Those people that drive the ambulances. Those people that can't work from home. They're essential. But essential also means being dispensable and disposable on the front lines. It's all right if you get COVID. You just have to keep me from getting it. I want my groceries delivered, please. I want you to go to work at the hospital. That there's that kind of dynamic at work in this country, and we can see it. And we're all complicit with it. And we have to figure out what we can do about that. So I'm going to tell you the end now in the middle. One of the things we can do about that is vote. Don't not vote, please. So I mentioned Breonna Taylor. And you may all know these things. You but some of you may not. So if you've got something to write with, I'm gonna sort of say from time to time things that I would recommend that you look at, that you read. So in my class, we sometimes do metta meditations, and some of you know what that means. We sometimes did that after we recited names. I'm thinking that in 2013, this is just a little history. I'm sure you all know it, but there may be some there who don't. In 2013, when there was the acquittal of George Zimmerman for killing Trayvon Martin, 3 Black women, right, texting, doing and tweeting and things that I don't know how to do, and it's okay. One of them said, I mean, how is this going to go on? Black Lives Matter. And that catchphrase on the tweet went viral. And before you knew it, hashtag Black Lives Matter. Oh, and that moment of 3 Black women talking to each other about the value of Black men's lives started a movement. And for me at my age, it looked like, here we go again. Here's a second civil rights movement. But it's different because it's digital too, you know? And it's different because it's not just Black folk marching, which is great. Huh? That's why it's great. People are still marching in Portland. Because when you look at those young folk who come out for the Black Lives Matter, protest, you see that it's a mixed group of young people. Power to them. And so I look at how the movements are different. But in 2013, when they founded this movement, the first posters that came out, posters, you know, for Black Lives Matter, I know you can't see this, but it has some names on it, right? And in 2014, if you thought the Black Lives Matter movement had become quiet, in 2014, with Michael Brown's shooting and his death in Ferguson, when that whole town exploded, 2 things. Black folks thought, boy, I think, I can't speak for all Black folks, but I thought, my sister thought, my aunt thought, wow, I didn't know Ferguson had been experiencing these kinds of problems, right? It's never just one. I saw my hand moving very slowly. Can you all hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay, well, the video slowed down. We thought, surely there's more going on in Ferguson that's made this powder keg explode. And once the DOJ, I'm going to ask you to write this down, the Department of Justice's report on Ferguson, you might want to look at that. It's a 70-page report that that's available on Google. Just Google it. And you see how the law enforcement people, the notes and the emails they shared with each other, how demeaning and denigrating and degrading those exchanges were about Black people in that community. You can see them. They clean their computers, you know. They show, you know, one image is an image of President Ronald Reagan. And this is just outrageous. Holding a chimpanzee. And underneath it says that the chimpanzee is Obama. And they got a good laugh out of this. These notes were exchanged amongst the police force in Ferguson. And we knew that there was surely something wrong when a white officer shot Michael Brown from behind and left his body in the middle of the street for 5.5 hours. That something, some point was being made, some horrific thing, some statement was being made. Okay, so then I was saying, to get back to the point, Black Lives Matter ballooned again in 2014 with the death of Michael Brown. So the early poster, and this is a little bit of history, the early poster of the Black Lives Matter movement named, well, I guess about 70 on this page, and then of course there are many more, goes Black Lives Matter. And the names are Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Ezell Ford, Oscar Grant, and goes on, right? List a lot of men's names. Then, that was 2014. Then 2015, Kimberly Crenshaw works New York Columbia School of Policy, right? She said, police brutality happens just as much, if not more, to Black women. And the Institute for Policy Study did an analysis. And they started something called hashtag Say Her Name, following up on the model of Black Lives Matter. And this was the poster for Say Her Name. They had many, many more names. And if you look to their website, or punch in Say Her Name, you'll see that here's an organization where the people who volunteer there supply support, food, physical support for families who have had women brutalized by police, and they make it a point to let the viewer, goes on that website, know that these names include people from ages 7 to ages 93 who have suffered death or molestation at the hands of police. Some statistics say that well over 1,000, in the past year, I think well over 1,200 deaths at the hands of police, some watchdog group has reported. But police don't have, there is no law that says they have to report people who are killed as part of there is no law saying that police have to report on deaths that are committed when they are investigating something. There is no law on the book that says they have to report these things. So there are probably many, many more that aren't reported. Well, now, things are getting in my mind. First, let me say to you that one of the 3 women who helped to found the Black Lives Matter movement, which focused on Black male bodies, one of the 3 women has written a memoir. and my students love it. And her name is, see, right here. You could see this top. Oh, I've covered them up. Just give me a second. Let me fall over. Oh. Okay, I'll give you the reading list for my course. Oh, sorry for the break there. One of the three women on that call, which resulted in Black Lives Matter movement, was Patrice Kahn Cullors. And Patrice Kahn Cullors has written a memoir that's called When They Call You a Terrorist. When They Call You a Terrorist. My students love it. So you say, what three Black women doing talking about Black bodies? We've got crazy folks talking about Between the World and Me, following up on Baldwin, and we've got some other Black males talking about how is it to inhabit a Black male body in this country in this time. You have these three women, and you learn from Patrice Kahn Cullors' book that she knows an awful lot about how it is to inhabit a Black male body in this country. She's had a father and a stepfather who were in and out of prison, in and out of the prison industrial complex. She has two brothers, one of whom had a mental issue, and so he was always arrested. He was always picked up, not given his meds. And then in one scene, she talks about they're dropping him off in the middle of the street with nothing but his underwear on, a brown paper bag. This was how he was released from prison, left in the rain, naked. Oh, and someone found him. So we have a whole class, a whole cast of people who are not looked after in this world, in our world, in these United States. Angela Davis writes the foreword because she was once called a terrorist, right? On the FBI's most wanted list. I use this book because it's humorous and you can learn a lot from it. Sorry for going into my course and syllabus here. But this is a book by Debbie Irvin. It's lovely. It's called Waking Up White and Finding Myself in the Story of Race. Boston Brahmin, liberal, good-hearted, wants to teach at inner city schools to give back for white privilege. And one day, the students that she's taking to theater on bus don't seem so happy with that gift she's giving them. And she wakes up to her noblesse oblige, the world she'd been living in. This is a white person who was doing good until she finally understood what her teenage students in the inner city were experiencing. And she heard them. They told her. This is a great book. Informative, human. Okay. One other book I want to mention, maybe two others. There's Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy. Some of you know about that one. Great. You know they've done a movie too. Book's better, as usual. Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy. Wherein it becomes clear that one of the institutions that America brought forward once slavery ended was a system of convict laborers and prisons. And the whole point is, how do you have free labor when you no longer have free labor? You build prisons and you get free labor. And it's just about that simple, though I know it's more complicated than that. This prisons provide free labor, and he works with, Brian Stevenson began by working with young children. It's the most vulnerable people who don't have access to money, who don't have access to things that we do, as some of us do, who suffer most. So we need to get involved with folk who are suffering most. Tigaha. This is another book I use in the course. It's by Michael, M-Y-C-A-L, Denzel. Guess his parents like Denzel. What's not to like? Smith. His name is Michael Denzel Smith, and he's written a book called Invisible Man Got the Whole World Watching. Now you hear Invisible Man, you might think Ralph Ellison, right? But Invisible Man Got the Whole World Watching is a Mos Def rap song. It's a rap tune. And this Michael Denzel Smith tells how it is to inhabit a Black male body in this country at this time through literature and rap. Oh, it's wonderful. This came in second in terms of my students. This is a wonderful book. This is he was very young when he wrote it, 29, I think. Black man, feminist. Says Ralph Ellison talking about invisible man. Nobody sees me, nobody sees me. And then he says, Toni Morrison answered him by saying, you want to know who sees you? We the same people who always saw you, namely Black women. So what you so sad about, Ralph? Oh, okay. I'm so happy to see some of you smile. Good. Oh. I also recommend this book, and then I'm going to stop and talk about a little more history. I recommend this book because of the way Mark Lamont Hill has written it. It's a book called Nobody. I was just saying the most vulnerable. Who are the women whom police routinely brutalize? Prostitutes, queer women, trans women. You know, it won't cause a big to-do. They just end up missing. Who cares? Didn't even mention Breonna Taylor's name in the indictment. So she was killed. What was that? Collateral damage? Not even mentioned as collateral damage, even though they were breaking into her apartment. Tikaha. Mark Lamont Hill writes a book called Nobody. It focuses on 5 individuals, and it branches out. The person who showed us Freddie Gray was his best buddy who started videoing him. But the book begins, the two of them stepped off the sidewalk at the projects, public projects where people are of low income are housed. Zip codes again here, having consequences for people's lives. Economics counting in there, have consequences for people's lives. Tikaha. So as I began, I said, sitting amidst these 3 crises, I began thinking about the meaning of freedom. And so I thought, okay, we've got Emancipation Proclamation, of which there were several versions, and there were changes in it. And it seemed to emancipate all slaves in this country, except clearly it didn't. It only emancipated people in states that were rebelling or trying to secede from the Union. So was Lincoln that good-hearted, or did Lincoln want to preserve the Union? Well, I think it's pretty clear he wanted to preserve the Union. The Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in rebellious states. And then there was an addendum put on it a year later, before it was announced, that said those former slaves could become Union soldiers. Okay, so the freedom had conditions. Tika, now I want to take you through quickly 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments. I'm after freedom. Yes, Jennifer, can you not hear me?
No, Professor Willis, we can. I'm just doing the time check.
Time?
It's up to you.
You telling me this? No, can't be. We have questions and answers though, right? But okay, the time is approaching. Can we say that? Oh, can we say that? Oh, now I have to really do this quickly. Lordy. We have the 13th, we have the Emancipation Proclamation. I think all of us learned, some of us knew about Juneteenth. We experienced that together, didn't we? In this COVID time, right? Juneteenth. We never, in my family, we celebrated July 4th, but only because it was a time for barbecue. We celebrated Juneteenth because we understood that the Emancipation Proclamation had finally reached those folk in Texas for whom we felt very sorry, because they had continued to be slaves for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Why? Because their slave owners didn't tell them about the Emancipation Proclamation and kept them working until June 19th. Oh, 67. Lordy. Juneteenth. So, but you've heard about Ava DuVernay, the 13th. You've heard about So what did it do? It liberated, it gave freedom to, actually. It gave freedom to former slaves, the 13th Amendment. Okay. Oh, what was that freedom worth? John Henderson, who was one of the senators, said, "We give those former slaves their freedom and nothing more." So no path forward in terms of education, economics, their freedom and their freedom only. Well, you have to question whether that's freedom. I'll take the chains off, but you get not a thing more. So no education, no path to education, no path to economic. The 40 acres and the mule, that never happened. Then we got the 14th Amendment, and that gave citizenship. Yippee. Oh. Citizenship and equal protection under the law. And the 15th Amendment gave Black men, not women, the right to vote. Now I ask you, freedom. That was 13. Citizenship and equal protection under the law. That was 14. And the right to vote. Now you ask yourselves, do people of color, do Black people have those freedoms today? I don't think we do. I don't think we do. So I'm thinking about freedom. And I'm wondering, when will we feel it? When are we going to feel that way? And I don't mean when are we going to feel happy. We can be happy. We've survived. We're resilient. We have families. We got that love James Baldwin talked about. Hmm? But when are we going to feel free? The only second that I felt it in this lifetime was when Aretha Franklin walked to the podium at Barack Obama's inauguration and sang, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet, sweet land of liberty." I thought, maybe it's for me too. Questions and answers, but that's fleeting. Wolf.
Thank you.
I guess it's enough. Freedom.
I think we can all listen to more. So thank you so much, Professor Willis. And we did want to make time for questions and answers. So if anyone has questions, please share them in the chat area. And then Professor Willis, shall I just read out questions that come up? Would that work?
Yes, you have that decision. You choose. I trust you, Jan. Oh,
great. So we
just
will
think about the 3 amendments and think about, how those are noted. I marched for civil rights with King in 1963. We got the Civil Rights Act, and then the next year we got the Voting Rights Act, and then they gutted most of the Voting Rights Act. And then physically they moved the polling stations, just like we're seeing the post things go away. Oh my goodness, can you believe it? It's unbelievable. Oh, Tigaha.
I was going to.
Anybody got some questions?
So we do have a question, and just to note, if anyone is a little shy of doing it publicly, you're welcome to privately share it. But one question came up: how do you keep yourself buoyant in the midst of the atrocities, like Breonna's name being omitted and the murder of George Floyd?
How do you keep yourself what?
Buoyant, light.
Am I buoyant? Oh, well, this is important, right? Because we're Buddhist. We aspire to be, right? And cardinal Buddhism in a nutshell is do no harm, practice virtue, discipline the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhists. And Martin Luther King said, it's a good thing the Lord didn't tell me I had to like him, but he did tell me I have to love him. If I count myself a child of God, I have to love him. So how we do it is we let love fuel the struggle. Now, I know you probably heard that, but that's true. Because if you go out with anger, your fuel will soon consume you and nothing will change. Oh. If you can act out of love for Breonna Taylor, and out of love for George Floyd, and out of love for these people who are suffering, then let that be the fuel for your struggle. Then you can get creative. And we are gonna have to get creative. Given, I was gonna say, given the foe we're facing, the foes are supposed to be just our own individual classes, right? But we're facing a pretty external foe here. And so we gotta vote. We gotta become activists. If we don't know how, talk to some people. Angela Davis wrote the foreword to this book because Patrice, she said Patrice was so clearly an activist. She knows about organizing because you have to organize. So now I say, I surprised myself, Jennifer, getting ready for this talk. I looked at this thing I wrote. It was published in Lion's Roar in In 2018, it said a Buddhist teacher's 5 ways to resist. My training with Dr. King was nonviolent resistance. Don't leave out the resistance part. Being peaceful does not mean being a doormat. It means you don't want to kill somebody. You want them to live. You take a vow to liberate all beings, and you can't say except this one and this one and this one and this one. And that's what King meant too. The Lord said you gotta love them. You don't have to like them, but you gotta love them, because we're all children of God. So I wrote this thing and surprised myself. It said in 2018, I'm the Buddhist teacher there. A Buddhist teacher's 5 ways. Become an activist, I say. Do no harm, practice good. Become an activist. It's not so scary. If you don't know how, ask someone who does and learn how. 2, in 2018, I was saying, find the babies, and we still do. That's King. That's Trump on the border, still separating families. He's still engaged in it. That was my find the babies. 3, vote in the midterm elections. Now is vote in the federal national election. 4, use your voice. 5, be brave. That's what bodhisattvas are called upon to do. I'll stop. Ask for another question. So I think try to remember that being peaceful does not mean being passive. His Holiness said that to me directly in 1970 when we were talking about colleges and fighting the policemen, and we called them pigs then. He said, if you say pigs in your mind, you got to let them get you. But if you can say, I've chosen to be with these on this line, then you do what you have to do. And if your vows are getting you uptight, you turn to him and say, Robbie, give up my vows. Randy, I give up my vows. And you stop the violence. If that's however you can. You can stop violence with love. I don't know. It seems hard. Easy for us to say sitting in our homes looking at our screens, but try to be creative. Help people. Give rights. If people are going to vote in person, take them. It's so simple. That's so simple, dear. Do what you can. If you can write about it.
Thank you. And I think we've answered Mary Beth's question, what can we do? And Shravasti Abbey, so we have the monastics at Shravasti Abbey, Venerable Thupten Children's Center watching.
I know, I've been there.
Listening.
Where are they? Are they on the screen somewhere?
I don't know if the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I can only
yes,
see.
They are. Yes, if you scroll, there they are waving. And
hi, Shravasti folk. Hello. Hello. Venerable Amy Miller. Hi. I hadn't seen the rest of the screens. I can only see so many in my little block.
Yeah.
How are you? Okay. So you have a question from the Shravasti nuns?
Yes, they did ask. So can you see any way to hold the police accountable by advocating for them to have professional insurance? I think we should push for this.
Professional insurance? In with I-S-I-N?
Yes.
I don't know, but the person asking the question maybe has an idea about it. Do you have an idea about it? Here you go. Please. Please, do you want to clarify, sister?
This is TARPA, and in healthcare, and even people who cut people's hair and all these other professions, you have to have professional insurance. This is a great way to regulate.
Oh.
And I think that we should
Yeah.
be pleased to have professional insurance, personal professional insurance, because then their insurance companies would not insure them when they had records. There's no accountability set up in this system. And I think that we need to put this idea out there. Way to take people out of a profession who are not suitable. That's my idea.
So there would,
like, so people could talk to people who, I mean, I'm not an activist, but this is the kind of thing that when I talk about public safety, there's a need. The reason you have regulatory bodies at a state level in healthcare is for public safety. And police officers are supposed to be keeping the public safe. So in my mind, I think that we should, in different levels, wherever it can work, push for them to have professional liability insurance. Because you cannot function in this society in a profession that is regulated by the insurance companies unless you have your act together. In this profession, together. Some of them do and some don't. So I think it's just a pragmatic way, the way our culture works, that it would be a good idea for all of us to be aware of that, where we can try to push this idea, because it's the American way.
okay, it's the American way. I think better to, I think Venerable, better to train police folk to be public safety people. I don't think they get that idea at all. I think enmity rises up. I think it's not a good job. I think it does something to their emotional makeup, and I know I'm generalizing, but I think when we've seen these acts of brutality, these folk don't know how, some of them don't know how to de-escalate a situation. They need more training. I think they need more training. I don't know about the insurance. But the folk we've seen who have a bad attitude, sister, when has it happened? When have we been watching on the TV when we say, there's another way to deal with that person, you know? There's another way to calm this situation down. I think there's that kind of training that should be given to people, and they should know that they are there to protect and to serve. I don't know brown-skinned people who look at a policeman and says, that's a friend of mine. He's gonna protect me. Rather, I know people who say, whatever you do, don't call him. Do you remember the person in Rochester recently? The man said, I was just calling him because he was having, you know, what appeared to be a breakdown. So what do we see? A naked man in the middle of the street in the snow, and then we see a policeman go up behind him and put a bag over his face. Those people should not be policing. They should not be public safety people. They're not concerned with the public's safety unless that public just goes one way or is one color. I'm sorry, but that's how it seems. That's how it appears. In other words, if Eric Garner says, hey, fellas, not today, and 6 people, police people, surround him and jump on him, and one of them gives a chokehold, These were people who knew Eric Garner. They knew him, Venerable. They knew he sold single cigarettes in Staten Island on that corner every day. It was just that one time when Eric Garner says, hey, fellas, not today. It was that insolence for which former slaves would be whipped. It was against the law to raise your hand in defense of yourself. That was against the law. Now, I'm trying to say something about the laws. I need water. I talked to a man from South Africa. He had been in the Mandela. He had been in the uprisings in South Africa. And he said, you're so fortunate. In the US, you have the law on your side. And I thought, he doesn't understand that. This is not exactly we have the law on our side. Certain elements of the society have the law on their side. Do you understand that? That's a bigger question than getting them insurance. You got other questions?
Yes, thank you. And also, just as an FYI,
Question?
we've lost your video, but we can still hear you.
Any other questions?
Hopefully you can hear me, but maybe not. Professor Willis, can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry, I can't hear, so I can't tell. Do you have another question, Jennifer?
Okay, yes, we do. So
you've lost my video.
Yeah, I think there's a delay here. Okay.
I can hear you. I can see you.
Okay. So,
yes.
So someone asked, Andrew asked.
Look, it's a huge. Oh, it's a little. This is a huge topic. Huge. Andrew, okay.
Thank you. It seems like there is an incredible amount of confusion and misinformation.
I moved something.
Okay, let's try again. It seems like there is an incredible amount of confusion and misinformation and propaganda fueling a lot of this hate. How do we fight this? How do we reach people when they have a totally different view of reality?
Well, we're not magicians. Oh, and my answer comes from a movie. It really does. Do you know the movie The Matrix? The Matrix. Venerables, have you seen The Matrix? Okay. Think about the first few frames. This is true for Buddhists. Think about the first few frames of the movie. What do you see? Neo has fallen asleep on his desk by his computer. The first words in the movie are, wake up, Neo. Wake up, Neo. Okay, now, it's not as simple as Neo needs to wake up. It's that Neo knows already. Neo is willing to wake up because Neo has seen that there are glitches in the matrix, right? In other words, Neo is looking for something. So what I'm saying is, one has to be willing to talk about race. That first. One has to be willing to be vulnerable. One has to be willing to learn. And if they're not, no amount of teaching, nothing will get to them. Neo was willing to wake up. Neo knew already something was not quite right. If people find themselves in that place where they know that things are not quite right, then they're willing to hear what you have to say. Then they're willing to learn about the history of racism in this country. Then they're open enough to say, really? I don't know, but at least to engage. I'm so happy that all of you showed up. I really am. Racism is an ugly word, I think. It's got all sorts of accusation barbs built in. So how do you ever get to saying, this is like the water we swim in, we're all in it. We have to see it. The Buddha woke up, he wasn't asleep. The first words in that movie are what you have to do. You have to be willing to wake up, I think. Boy, I sound like can't that. But it takes a certain a certain feeling or understanding to wish to learn more. Then there's lots and lots and lots of things that a teacher or any amount of books or any number of syllabi can help people with. But if they're not interested and if they're not willing, it's like those cups that Casey talk about, you know, they're cracked and so everything leaks out, or they're dirty, so no matter what you put in them, gets stained, or they're turned completely upside down, so nothing can get in. There has to be a willingness. And then you just do the best you can. You use your creativity, your smarts. You do what you can do with people that you know. Once you see, you have to act. Otherwise, you say, yeah, that's a bad situation, but I'm not going to do anything about it. If you see that a situation is wrong, you try to come up with a solution. And the solution should be non-harmful to the other, beneficial to the other, non-harmful to oneself, non-harmful to the other. Then you act. It's simple. Oh, then simple. Not so simple, but then simple. Shantideva says, oh, the swan swoops down into the world of suffering. You know? No, the Bodhisattva swoops down into the lake of suffering like a swan and dallies there. Ooh, ooh, let's dally there. Let's not get overtaken by it. Let's act. Let's do something. Let's generate courage. Courage. The brave bodhisattvas. I see this and it's not good. I'm going to see what I can come up with to help that situation. Then something good will come from that, I think. None of this situation is new. We just happen to have an occupant in the president's seat, 45, who allows it to spring forth. Oh, who allows it? I mean, the law might not be able to change a person's heart. This is what King said, but at least it can change his behavior. All sisters, it might not be able to change his heart, but at least it should be able to change his behavior. That might be enough. Oh my goodness. But it's not enough. We have laws, but they're not working for us. Oh, we're free. J. Cole says, all I want to be is be free. All I want is to take the chains off. All I want is to be free. Be free. I recommend that too. J. Cole, Be Free, Letterman Show. But Black people in this country have been wishing for that for 400
Professor Willis, I think we have lost your audio. I don't know if you can hear us. Hear me?
Oh no. Really?
Now it's coming back
it's on.
in pieces.
Okay, I'll say something. Am I back? It goes in and out, I see. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. So we have lots of questions. There was one that came up several times, and if you have a few minutes and if everyone is willing, it would be a great question. And it's about what can Buddhist centers do to actively keep us awake, work towards positive change, take a proactive approach.
I know the people at Shantideva Center, and you all means well. So, maybe other centers have to show it by bringing in more people of color. Now you say, how do you do that? Well, I think I sound like a broken record because Tricycle published this piece by me. It's an excerpt from Dharma Matters, and the piece they chose was a piece I wrote in 1996, where I was saying that since I had gained so much from Buddha Dharma, that I would like, and that the Buddha taught freely to all the caste and even to women, then I would like to see the Dharma be shared equally. I would like there to be access to the Dharma in America. And the only way there can be access, since the way Buddhist centers operate and are structured and have to pay the rent, they have retreats, people pay for them. The retreats take so long. If you are a working class, you can't do that and expect to have a job waiting for you. So the structures have to change. There have to be scholarships. There have to be open houses. There have to be movie nights. There have to be more openness. If that's what you want to do, gain a more diverse group. If it's not, don't worry about it. But if you do want to, you have to figure out ways to bring more diverse folk in. That's all. To practice Buddhism in America requires money and leisure time. Working class people don't have that. So you have to structure other ways to get them in. This would be a time, like now we're all using Zoom, maybe we could get wider. Oh. But I was arguing that in a piece from 1996. It wasn't current. And so I remember James Shaheen saying, well, you really, you could see that. And I said, the sad thing is, I was saying it so long ago, nothing has changed. Except, Jennifer, something has changed. Larry Yang's book is excellent. The book called Awakening Together, the East Bay Meditation Center. Now, one of the things it argues is you can't retrofit a Dharma center. You have to start at the beginning to build this diverse community. Also, Larry and Gina Sharp and Kate Wheeler, we just had, and myself sometimes, they invited me, through Spirit Rock, just began a pipeline of teachers. I remember Ralph Steele saying, the only way you're gonna create diversity in the Dharma is to have people of color teachers there. They have to be seen, otherwise they feel strange. People of color feel strange. They don't feel welcome and they don't see anybody like them. Well, that's true in everything. So Larry and these other folk at through Spirit Rock, we've just had graduation earlier in September. And we graduated the first imprimatur from Spirit Rock of 20 teachers, diverse, LGBT, and they're teachers, like they're going out to their places. And so training teachers. Maybe a system within each center where there can be scholarships for that, helping to train teachers, having them go away and be trained. Anyway, I think there are many opportunities, but it requires, I think, some concerted, real effort and some real financial effort. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. That's how America operates. Buddhism has become a commodity, I wish it weren't, but this is not Thailand. You can't walk into a place, be a man, and walk into a place and just be accepted. Doesn't work that way here. So maybe with your minds better than mine, you're younger at least, you can come up with more ideas on how to make a more inclusive, diverse community. And if you really want that, then you focus some time, some effort in it.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Have to really want it. Otherwise, a waste of time.
Thank you. This is great food for thought. We would like to share a few words with the community. But before we do, Professor Willis, we wanted to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your heart, your authenticity with us, and for inspiring us to think more about these issues and what we can do. So from the bottom of my heart and from Shantideva, just thank you. Please teach us again. Thank you.
It's always, Jennifer, such a pleasure. I love your community, and it's a pleasure to join you. And I'm grateful for all who also joined us tonight. Great to see some old friends. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our community and those joining us, I just wanted to share a few things. One is if you wish to make an offering to Dr. Willis, like how we offer a kata at the end of teachings, we're doing so virtually.
Virtual kata, oh, thank you.
A link.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. In PayPal, and you can make an offering and we'll forward everything to Professor Willis. You'll need to choose her name in the drop-down menu. And then I also did wish to share, it came up in a question, and also it's so related to what we're talking about, but Venerable Thupten Chodron from the Abbey has recently offered to give a special talk on Wednesday, October 14th about surviving the elections and creating positive change from a political perspective. And so I just wanted to share that because I think it can be a lot of help for people like myself and others who are really struggling to keep a calm, positive mind. So that's available on our website, shantidevanyc.org. And also, you know, this aspect that you haven't shared, Professor Willis, with us today, but it's so deep in your being. And I almost feel like, you know, I'm listening to Lama Yeshe through the videos, hearing you, but just this Dharma practice. I just wanted to share that there are several amazing teachers guiding us. So Venerable Amy, who's here, weekend course on Tantra. Geshe Tenli is offering a teaching on compassion and emptiness. Venerable George Chernoff, who's finished a 3-year retreat recently, will host a course on the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. And Gendan Hendrik is teaching on chapter 7 of Shantideva's guide. So all this is on our website. Just wanted to share these resources. And we will go through the chat and just make sure we're getting all the resources. Maybe we could share all those in an email to people so that we can continue this journey together, and just praying and dedicating that all of this energy is used in the best possible way to ensure that our country and our world is more just, and that we do continue to face those issues and create a better society of friendship for everyone, regardless of race or any background. So, thank you so much.
Let's imagine the world we want to see and then go out and try to do it. Make it so. Make it so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Willis.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And thank you, everyone. So good to connect with you. Thank you. Wishing you well.